Hi, children. This is Mrs. Merchant. Welcome back. Today, we'll be doing the effects of friction. Okay, we'll be investigating the effects of friction. Okay, now we've done lots of lessons on forces, and this week will be the last week on forces. Now, today we are going to explain the effects of friction on a moving vehicle, and we are also going to investigate effects of friction by different materials. Okay, and for this investigation you will need toy cars. Okay, so if you don't worry, if you don't have toy cars, you can also use a shoe for your investigation. You are going to investigate how does the toy car or the shoe move on different surfaces. Okay, so this is today's investigation. Okay, now we'll move on to the PowerPoint. Okay, Wednesday, 22nd April 2020. Lesson 1, to investigate the effects of friction. Now today children will be learning about friction. Okay, now we are going to learn the effects of friction on a moving vehicle, and we are going to investigate the effects of friction created by different materials, and we are going to recognize and control variables in an investigation. Now, what is friction? Now look at the statements about friction and can you decide which are true and which are false? Discuss your ideas with maybe your brothers and or sisters, because right now we don't have your talk partners, so maybe you can talk to any of your siblings or your parents. Discuss your ideas with them before sharing your thoughts with me during your task. Friction is stronger than gravity. Friction is a force. Friction slows moving objects down. All surfaces create friction on an object moving over them. Friction produces heat. Friction is always a useful force. Now, how did you do this? Okay, so the whatever is in green is true and whatever is in pink is false. Okay? Friction is a force that acts between two surfaces or objects that are moving or trying to move across each other. For example, when you try to push a book across the floor, friction makes this difficult. Friction always acts in the opposite direction to the direction that the object is moving. It always slows a moving object down. Okay? Now, all surfaces create friction on an object moving across them. Rougher surfaces produce more friction, but even very smooth surfaces like ice produce some friction. Okay, so the more rough a surface is, it produces more friction, and the more smooth a surface is, it produces less friction. How can friction affect a moving object? Now, we've already learned about air resistance and water resistance in the previous lessons, and they both are forms of friction. Gases and liquids create friction as well as solids. Now, friction can be useful. For example, the soles of your shoes create friction with the ground, preventing you from slipping over. Okay, so that's why the soles of your shoes, they are quite rough. They are not very smooth, because the smoother they are, they won't be able to create any friction, and then there might be a chance of you slipping over and falling down. That's why the soles of your shoes are quite rough. However, friction can be unhelpful too. friction on a bike chain can make the bike harder to pedal. The brakes on a bicycle or car work by creating friction between the brake pad and the wheels. Okay, so in this picture you can see the brake pad and the wheels. And then friction is created here between the brake pad and the wheel. Okay. Now the friction opposes the movement of the wheels, slowing them down and eventually stopping them. Okay. Now because there's friction and as soon as you press the brakes, what happens is the friction, it opposes the movement and then eventually it stops the bike. Now go on this link and watch this video about friction. It's a very useful video. It's also on the school's website. If you go on the online learning and if you click on the tab or if you copy paste, you'll come across this video about friction. It's a very useful video which will help you understand friction. Now that you have learned about friction, which path do you think will offer the greatest friction and why? And on which path do you think vehicles will go the slowest and the fastest? So the first one, you can see that it's quite a rough path. It's quite muddy and it's uneven. The second one is something in the middle, okay? It's neither rough nor very smooth. And the third one, you can see that it's a very smooth task. So where do you think the vehicles will go the slowest and where do you think the vehicles will go the fastest? Now, your task, okay? Now, for your task, you need different toy cars. Now, don't worry if you don't have a toy car at home. I'm sure like most of the children will be having, but even if you don't have a toy car, don't worry. You can even use a shoe for your investigation. Now, you have to test the cars or the shoe on different surfaces and find which surface offers the most friction. So for example, you can first try on a carpet and see how fast the shoe or the car moves on a carpet. Then try it out on a smooth table. Then maybe a concrete playground, or you can go in your garden and maybe try it out in your garden. And then you're going to record your findings, that which surface made the car move the fastest and which surface made the car move the slowest. Okay. So this is your task. Write your findings on a sheet of paper and then you can either email it to me and I'll be happy to mark your answers.